If you're watching this as the recorded video, sorry, I'm still getting everything set up. So this first bit might be a little bit boring. And there's no one here yet. So welcome to all of you watching this after we've done it, recorded. Get Cupwise start session. It's the first time I'm using Cupwise as well, so hopefully I get this right. Waiting for host to start session. I'm the host. So start session. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm still getting set up. I'm still working out how to use Cupwise. And I think the live stream is working, but it's not showing up on Cupwise. Please try again later. Let me just refresh. Now I've got the live stream going. Why doesn't that want to work? Edit, let's find the link. Whoa, what happened there? Why am I zoomed in? Zoom out. Live, edit, link. Where's the link? Visibility. Cupwise. My sessions. Edit. YouTube. AC. VMQ. Maybe I need to add live stream. Why isn't that coming up? I'm not sure why the video is not coming up on Cupwise. The link seems to be correct. If I copy. Yeah, okay. I'm looking at myself now, so it seems to be working. The link is correct. I'm looking at myself now, so it seems to be working. The link is correct. I'm looking at myself now, so it seems to be working. The link is correct. Audio delay, so let's turn that off. There it goes. Why is it delayed? Okay, I don't know why that. The link is. Okay, let's try. Taking this link, paste, save. Why that doesn't want to work. What? Still getting the same error code. This is annoying. Sorry, everyone. The link I have in on Cupwise is the link on YouTube. I've got the YouTube window open here, and that's exactly the link I've put into Cupwise. But it's not letting me save. When I click save on Cupwise, it's not coming up. So most of the people watching this, go direct to video. Oh, hold on. Got it. Hey, Anders. Go direct to the video on YouTube. Only way to see it. Yeah, but that's annoying. I'm seeing if I can try and fix it. Because then people will have to keep going back and forth between the video and Cupwise to put their scores in. And Cupwise keeps turning off the session. I keep going start session and then it starts and then it's turning off again. So slightly annoying. Let me refresh again. Refresh that, see if it saves the new link. Okay, so the new link is saved. This is the live link currently in YouTube. And Cupwise just isn't allowing it. And I don't know why. Problem is, why isn't that working? Okay. That's really annoying. Okay, I'm just going to have to link everyone to the video on YouTube. And in the Cupwise group chat. And sorry, everyone, I guess we're going to have two windows open. I can't work it out. The links are all correct. Cupwise just keeps throwing up an error message for YouTube. I'm guessing YouTube's just not allowing it to take the stream. I don't know why. Anyway, sorry for the delay and just watching me faff about. All right, I'm going to put the link into the Cupwise chat and hopefully people can see it. Get that here. All right. I've thrown that into the chat in Cupwise, so hopefully people can see that. If anyone's watching this, if anyone's pulled it off and is watching the live stream on YouTube and has seen the message in Cupwise, can you please let me know in the chat so I know that that's worked? Hey, Bondo. Um, yeah, and as I'm just going to use two devices and swap between. Yeah, I think that seems to be what we're going to have to do. Sorry, it's beyond me. I'll email Cupwise after this before we do the next one and see if I can work out what's going on. I've popped on here from Cupwise, watching from YouTube. Cool. All right, thanks. So that message has come through. Sorry, it just means we're going to have to click back and forth between them. If you want to throw anything into the chat, maybe throw it into the YouTube chat, not the Cupwise chat, because that'll be the screen I'm on the most likely. So I might not see stuff um, on the Cupwise chat until after a little bit. But at least YouTube's working. At least we got one thing working. Although I've got a massive delay. So I'm like seeing myself massively. Is that normal for streams? I've never streamed before. I'm not a streaming kind of person. So it seems weird to me. It's freaking me out a little bit, but we'll go with it. I'm just going to not look at the video. I'm just going to focus on the chat. So after all of that, yeah, that's normal for streams. Not to worry. Okay, cool. I thought that was another tech thing I'm screwing up. I'm 100% sure it's my fault. I can't get the video to work in Cupwise. But anyway, we're here now. Let's get going because I've spent like 5 minutes screwing about. Welcome everyone, both live and watching the recorded video to our first live tasting. Obviously, this is our first. It has some kinks. I apologize for that. I also apologize for the vacuum over my shoulder that you can see. You can see I tried to decorate the room a little bit with the nice fake fern. I'm not a YouTuber. That's I'm a coffee roaster. I'm just in my study at home on a Sunday. So please forgive the not very interesting. I don't have any neon lights behind me either. See if I'll turn this lamp. Just turning the lamp. Is that better or worse? Does it not make a difference? Now the lights in my eyes. That's more YouTubey. They always put lights on their faces and lights behind themselves. I'm not going to do that. Lights in my face. This is obviously a bit of a test. We want to see how this goes. With this, initially we now know straight away that there's some technical issues, which we'll work on before the next one. But it's something that we want to do regularly, where we can't always cup together. Obviously, COVID made that hard to cup together. But even now, with the restrictions easing off, if you're not in Adelaide, I can't cup with you effectively. So the idea is, no matter where you are, both in Australia and around the world, although international shipping is half of the coffee, but I know at least one person in Japan bought some. We can cup together and we can share our thoughts and our tasting descriptors together. So that's what Cupwise is for. So obviously we got the video. Ideally for the next one, this stream would be in the Cupwise window, so we can look at our cupping score sheets and the video kind of at the same time. Unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, I can't work out. We're doing two windows today, kind of separately. So Cupwise is the platform where we can all enter our scores. And I should say, for this first live virtual tasting, we are doing the Koji process coffees. So we have two coffees from Elva Hell. Get a little bit closer. So we have the Geisha. Wait, am I looking at the right bag? No, the Geisha and the Red Bourbon. Yep. And so these coffees were processed with Koji, which is what's used for sake and miso. As far as I'm aware, it didn't really ferment the coffee as such. It was a pre-fermentation stage where it's saccharifying, I know that's not a word, saccharifying starches to give more available sugars to the fermentation. Both these were naturally processed afterwards. So the farm is Elva Hell, and this process was pioneered by Christopher Ferrin from Phoenix Coffee, and Capo, I'm not going to be able to pronounce your last name, Capo from One Day Coffee. And so, yeah, it's really interesting, innovative. We bought these coffees with Josie Coffee. The guys from Josie Coffee gave me a buzz and were like, we've got these, have you heard of this Christopher Ferrin Koji thing? We've got some of these coffees. Do you want to split it with us? I'm like, yep, that sounds amazing. I'd read the blog and stuff, sounded really cool. Hadn't tasted them. Up until we roasted these, we hadn't tasted them. We've cut them a couple of times since, but this is we're going in blind along with you guys. Now, ordinarily for these virtual tastings, it would probably be a coffee we've cupped and chosen and everything else that we usually do. But for this one, it is very much we're in the same position you are, and hopefully we all enjoy these coffees. And we can, put our tasting notes and stuff in together. So that's what Cupwise is for. The video is a video for the sake of a video. Cupwise is a platform where we're going to be putting our scores in together. So at the moment, I've unlocked scoring, and so at any point you can start putting your personal scores in. Then once we've got everyone's scores in, I'm going to turn on the I'm going to reveal the average scores and group descriptors and polarization, which I don't know what that means, but we'll see what happens when I push that button. Fun for all of us. So down the bottom of the screen, you can obviously scroll past the video that doesn't work and it's just giving you an error message. And then towards the bottom of the screen, you'll then have our cupping forms. We have one for the red bourbon and one for the geisha. Red bourbon on the left. I've got my red bourbon on the right, but I think that's your left. So I'm going to leave that bag there. And so then we've got scores for aroma, acidity, sweetness, balance, clarity, and mouthfeel. I think this is the Scott Rayo cupping form. Obviously, Cupwise has lots of different forms you can use. And I think this is the one that Scott made up for Facsimile, I think, from memory. Either way, this is the one I thought would be most useful for us. You've got the full COE ones and that sort of thing, but a lot of the times they're probably more technical than what we want to achieve today. So you've got all those scores from 7 to 10. It assumes that nothing's going to cup lower than a 7 in any of those categories. I hope that's the case. And then you've got descriptors down the bottom. And so you can add any descriptors. Now, ordinarily, you'd add descriptors in separate spots for like aroma. You do the dry fragrance, and then you do the wet fragrance, and then taste. It's just got a big section down the bottom. So just throw everything you get in there. And actually, honestly, I find that's an easier way to cup. Generally, when we're cupping, that's what we do, because you just want to it's just a little bit more free form. And I find when you're trying to get descriptors, being a little bit more free form, being a little bit more loosey goosey with that stuff makes them flow a little bit better, personally. And so we're going to assess the dry fragrance, boil our water, brew the coffees, assess the wet fragrance, and then start tasting them. I'm not sure if everyone's done a cupping before, but so I'm going to assume presumptuous 7+, but probably accurate, judging by the whiffs. Okay, that's a good sign. We got some initial impressions that are positive. I'm just going to raise this laptop a little bit with my fancy stand. It's a book. It's got a bunch of books here. That work? That a little bit better? That looks a little bit better. Yeah, okay, a little bit more in shot. So I'm going to show you my setup. I'm going to assume people watch, especially people watching the recorded video, that you maybe haven't done a cupping before. So I'm going to walk you through what I'm doing. I'm then also going to think out loud with my descriptors and put my scores in. If you wanted to, you could always just make notes and then put your scores into Cupwise afterwards. Please, anyone, let me know if something goes wrong. If you're trying to put your scores in and they're not going in or something like that. I've unlocked the scoring, so hopefully it works. First time cupping for me. Thank you for the opportunity. Taste. These coffees actually aren't very mad. I expected that they would be. I think a lot of us did expect that they would be. But actually, the impact from the Koji seems to be quite subtle. It's just an interesting twist more than a changing things completely, in my opinion, at least for our roasts of these two lots. So I'm going to see if this works. I'm going to bend the screen down a little bit and just show you what I've got set up. See, does that work? See, because of the delay, I have to. Cool. So I've got my. See, here we got the bags, and I've got my coffee already ground, and you can see I've already pre-ground it, and I've put just a coaster on top to trap the aroma. And ordinarily I wouldn't necessarily do this, but these coffees are still a little bit fresh. They're a very light roast, and ideally they would have like another week on them before we tasted them. We're finding on the loring now that we're using, that especially with the light roasts, coffees aren't really opening up until at least 2 weeks. So that's a little setup. And then over there, I've got my kettle and I've got my scales ready to go as well. So I already ground the coffee. If anyone hasn't ground their coffee yet, then please go and do so. And hopefully you don't miss too much. I'm going to assume that most people probably ground their coffee or are right by their grinder or something as we're doing this. So you're ready to go. If anyone is live and is like, no, I'm going to be 10 minutes to ground my coffee, just let me know. Madness from a culinary innovation sense, I guess. Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's definitely an interesting take on things, especially in a world full of really crazy coffee ferments and stuff. This really appealed to me. Which is why when the Josie Boys gave me a call, I was like, yeah, that sounds really fun. So I have my scales, I have my coffee already ground and covered. I also have my spoons for breaking and another cup for cleaning my spoons. Another one for, because I don't have a sink in here, you ordinarily just tip the water out and reuse that cup, but another one for my rinsing spoon once we actually start cupping, and my kettle ready to go. And so it's probably time to start smelling the coffee. Oh, okay. Thank you, Anders. Yeah, Anders is going to give me some great little pointers that I should point out to people. How many grams? So for these cups, for me, I can get 180 grams of water in them. So I've done 12.6 grams of coffee, which is a 70 gram per liter brew ratio, which is actually much higher than I'd ordinarily recommend for cupping. What would I would ordinarily cup? Ordinarily, we'd do 60 grams per liter. So we'd be doing 12.6 grams in a cup, which is 210 mils. So I've gone a little bit coarser and a higher dose on these ones because based on advice from Luca, because he's had some of the Koji coffees before, and he said for him they worked a little bit better with a lower extraction yield. So aiming for a lower extraction yield and then just up dosed a little bit to get the TDS, the strength that I'm used to and prefer when I'm cupping. Ordinarily, thank you, Anders. That's a good point. Going to go 12.6 grams in 210 mils, usually 60 grams a liter. Doesn't really matter what the cup size is. And slightly coarser grind. Oh, hello, Luca. Yeah, you don't have the coffee, do you? So you're just you're just joining in. Thank you for being here, and thank you for that tip. I've cupped them a couple of times since with yes, a coarser grind. I mean, the biggest thing there is lowering the extraction. So I always like using grind as my variable. Some people prefer using water and that kind of thing. But with cupping, water right off the boil, coarser grind to get your lower extraction. In terms of grind size, I'm not going to be able to communicate that on camera very effectively. So it's probably best to just dial that in by taste. Again, for those cupping for the first time, I mean, roughly depends so much on the grinder, but roughly you might want something that's similar to like raw sugar, that kind of granularity. But you're going to want to dial in based on taste. And that obviously is a skill you develop with time. But if you find the coffees are astringent, it's definitely too fine. If you find the coffees have some predominant bitterness along with the other flavors, and they may be a little bit bland, they're not really showing their origin character very well, then again, perhaps it's just a little bit too fine. If you find the coffees are quite sour, quite watery and weak at 60 grams per liter, then it's probably a little bit too coarse. And so you might want to go a little bit finer. You'll find your sweet spot, but ideally the right grind size is going to be something which gives you a lot of origin character, some acidity, and no astringency, and some nice body and sweetness. Cool. I don't know. Should I be reading out the people's comments? Because like when I'm on IGTV, which I have done quite a bit, I always read out the comments because when you're watching the video afterwards, you can't see the comments. But I think on YouTube you can. So I might just stop because all of you currently here can read that, and I'm fairly certain people watching this after the fact will be able to read those as well. So I'm just going to respond to comments and not keep reading them out because that's probably already getting a little bit tedious for all of you, I would assume. Or maybe read them out for something to respond to. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I like when lecturers do that when they repeat a question in case you didn't hear the question. Maybe not everyone. Maybe people won't be able to see the chat replay. Like I said, I'm not a YouTuber. I don't know. So I'm actually going to start in terms of dry aroma and the whole process. I'm probably going to be starting with the geisha when I'm going back and forth between them because the geisha is a lot more subtle. So even though in cup wise we have the red bourbon on the left and ordinarily go left to right to try and keep things straight in your head to just make life easier when you're doing a lot of coffees, I'm going to be starting with geisha. You don't have to, but it's just because it's quite a lot more subtle and delicate. The red bourbon might dominate it a little bit. I also highly recommend taking little breaks and having some water. So I'm going to take my coasters off. The coasters were just to trap the dry aroma because I pre-ground these a little while ago. You don't want that dry aroma. Oh, that smells quite nice. You don't want the dry aroma leaving. The most volatile things will volatilize off very quickly. So hence the coasters. Um, so feel free to start throwing your. I'm going to keep going back to Cupwise to see if people put. We can start putting scores in for aroma. You can adjust your scores, so you can put a score in, and then if you once it's wet, you want to change that score. Absolutely, I'm fairly certain you can then change it again afterwards. I only did this once with facsimile, so um, but yeah, so you can change your scores. I would probably put my scores in and then just change them if I need to. And descriptors, I would just throw everything in and then probably keep it in there. And feel free to throw in negative things as well. Like this is meant to be completely open, honest. I'm going to be open and honest about the coffees and our own roasting. Please don't feel obligated to only put nice things in. The whole idea of this is to be transparent and do it together, get an accurate idea of what these coffees are about. And you can be honest about our roasting as well. If you think there's some stuff in there you don't like, which is due to our roasting, we have zero ego with our roasting. I don't want to prime anyone, but I already know there's going to be the roasting's not perfect. Roasting's never perfect, but I'm not quite happy with the roasting. We only had 2 goes at each coffee, and they behaved very differently to what I was expecting based on the origin, the processing, altitude, all that stuff. And so, yeah, I already know you're not going to be like, ooh, offending Adam's feelings. Don't worry, it's fine. I don't have any feelings attached to our roasts. There's things I would change if we had a 3rd go or could do it again. So yeah, please, completely honest feedback. And I had another thought there for putting scores in. Oh yeah, if you want to, you could always throw ideas you're having into the group chat on YouTube. Because, like I said, we're probably not going to be using the group chat in Cupwise so much. So if you just have questions or what are other people getting, the idea is we're doing this together. So yeah, feel free to throw stuff into the chat, not just into the Cupwise score sheet. It's going to be a little bit weird for me because I'm just going to be reading out my descriptors. So it'd be great if people could throw theirs into the chat as well if you're brewing the coffees, so I don't feel so alone. Anyway, so I'm starting with the geisha and the dry fragrance. I agitate the cups. Don't know if you need to, but it's just a habit I have. So the first thing I get off of this particular roast for me is sencha green tea, so Japanese green tea. It's also I'm not going to be able to do this honestly without also priming people. The roast is a little bit underdeveloped. I know we roast quite lightly, even for us, it's a little bit underdeveloped. Weirdly, the first roast we took out of the roaster, we cupped it straight away, and it didn't seem underdeveloped. So we did the same profile for the second one, and then a week later, oh, there it is. So yeah, sorry, it's a little bit underdeveloped. So that green tea might have then become a little bit more floral with a bit more development on it. The green tea, I think, is because sencha can have that little bit of a vegetal grainy. Grainy is not the right word, but maybe rice is the right word. Quality to it. So I think that floral is kind of coming through a little bit that way. And honestly, some brown sugar. I'm not getting a lot of typical geisha qualities yet. I have cupped this a couple of times now, so once the water hits it, I do know that it becomes a little bit more geisha-y. I don't get a lot of Koji going on, not literally the thing, but this is kind of what I'd expect. Colombian geisha at this altitude, which is a little bit underdeveloped, to smell like, which is interesting. So Lucas said, if it's under, it would be important to cup several passes, like see how it tastes right up to the 24. Yes. So yeah, several passes being several times going around tasting, and we'll definitely be doing that. Generally, when we're at the roastery and we're cupping, we'll cup, like in terms of passes, tastings, we'll do after like 10 minutes or so once it's cooled enough to start, and then we'll keep going back, probably like 3 or 4 passes until the coffees are absolutely room temp. There's some roast defects, and like a lack of sweetness, for instance, is a really big one, which don't come through until the coffee is really cold. So a couple of passes will help. But yeah, so overall that's quite pleasant, apart from a little bit of underdevelopment. Not real any crazy Koji stuff going in there. No one's put any aroma scores in yet. I'm not going to be the first person to do that. I've got an idea in my head. I'm going to let other people put the first scores into cupwise before I start putting scores in. I think. Um, and if anyone's got some notes, throw them into cupwise. So I'm going to put my note. Let's test this out. I'm going to put my notes in. Sencha, and then some brown sugar. And then do I push enter? What happens? No, they just stay in there. Plus. Oh, okay. So when you push plus, that's one descriptor. So don't type in multiple descriptors. Just put one descriptor in and then go enter or push plus, and then another descriptor, enter or plus, and then it makes them each individual descriptors. And I think it gives us like a word bubble of everyone's descriptors. Oh, maybe people are putting stuff in, but I can't see it because I haven't revealed the scores yet. So anyone want to throw in that they've added scores in? Sleek brown smells, earthiness. Yeah, the vegetable smell. Yeah, I think that's mostly coming from the roast, the herbal as well. Milk choc, earthy. Earthy, yes. Yeah, I haven't got the earthy. I wonder if earthy is that vegetable. Oh yeah, you get a little bit of an earthy thing. I wonder if that's also potentially from the roast as well. One time when I was cupping this, I got a little bit of a pencil shavings thing, which some people say is from underdevelopment. I actually think it's a combination of underdevelopment, but also perhaps a little bit of tipping. I went through these and the beans, and yeah, anyway, I'm going to put that aside for now. But there were a few, I had to pull out a few tipped beans. Tipping is a roast defect. I'm not going to get into that now. But yeah, ideally, again, with more roast, we could have avoided that. But realistically, with tipping, you'd go slower in the roast. Tipping is going to be from too much heat input. This is the slowest roast we've done for a while and still got a little bit of tipping. So I think we probably needed a bigger batch on the loring, because loring's just, yeah, it was 6 kilos and a 15-kilo loring. So, but yeah, so that might be where that slightly might ground too far. No, I don't think grind's going to change that. I think if there's some pencil shavings there, it's going to be there. Yeah, see, this is where pencil shavings, now I mention it. Yeah, see, this is what happens when you prime people. I guess that's, part of this. Scores, then score others relative to it. The scores won't be right, but the relative part is an important part. Yeah, I guess we've only got the 2 coffees here, so. Anyway, let's move on to the red Bourbon, which I think has a bit more going on and a bit more Koji going on. Yeah, okay, so there's definitely something happening from the Koji here. Because it's a natural and it's not one of those, see, there's some funk, but it's not, for me at least, it's not that same kind of run-of-the-mill CM coffee savory kimchi funk. It's a different kind of funk to what we've been getting with these heavy naturals lately. And there is some really nice berries, from like, just like I'm not going to say this is clean, but if, for those of you that can remember those clean naturals, which were just like heavy, maybe borderline overripe, but really ripe berries, it's got that going on, which is nice, because a lot of naturals these days are being really over the top, and it's hard to find something which is a bit more restrained, with those berry notes. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I definitely prefer so far I definitely off the dry rum prefer the red bourbon over the geisha. Part of that's going to be the roast. I think we haven't quite done justice to the geisha in that regard. But along with some nice, the berries are like, it's pretty good strawberry. It's not as, a lot of people said that it was going to be like super candied strawberry, like really intense strawberry. Maybe it's our roast or the age, because our vac seal on the red bourbon was broken when we received it. So, and I've dilly dallied on releasing it. So maybe that was quite volatile and it's gone. But yeah, there's definitely some strawberry there. But for me, it's a normal kind of natural Ethiopian level of strawberry, and it's quite real. It's not particularly artificial, which I actually prefer. Artificial strawberry doesn't really sound super appealing, but there's some brown sugar again, and now people have said earthy. I'm getting a little bit of an earthy thing. I wonder if that's maybe, I'm putting some descriptors in. When I do this, it's because I'm putting descriptors into my laptop. Again, I don't have a good setup. I'm just using my laptop webcam. So I'm going to put in strawberry. And then I'm going to go brown sugar again, which is for me very, very Colombian, brown sugar. That's a and Bourbon in particular, the variety. I get that a lot. And then I'm gonna it really isn't. It's not clearing that. And then I'm gonna put Little Earthy as well. I wonder if that is the Koji coming through in a slightly savory way, but now people have primed me to pick up Earthy as coming through a little bit. Um, Yeah, the red bourbon has more perfume to it. It does. Yeah, I agree with that. As far as I'm aware, I could have sworn that the geisha was natural as well, but it really came through as more of a wash geisha for me. I think a lot of the aroma that's coming through on the bourbon is natural processing. That's where that more intense fruit is coming through. Um, I'm reminded of strawberry ice cream and tamari from the bourbon. Yeah, strawberry ice cream sounds amazing. I can't picture tamari. Is that a soy sauce? Is that I think I can picture that word in our cupboard at home. Is that a type of soy sauce? In which case that would make sense. Miso soy sauce. There is some once water hits this, I know that there is some stuff from the koji going on. Hence why I've gone a little bit coarse. So again, thank you for that tip, Luca. Lucas said I don't think it was that candied on Josie's. Okay, well there you go. Maybe I'm misremembering what people said. Fresh strawberry or slightly stewed. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm getting out of it as well. Yeah. Then some other stuff as well. There's some other stuff going on, but I'm not going to put them down as descriptors because they're a little bit fluffy in my head at the moment. So Pondo said it smells like there's almost a slight umami smell, mostly sweet, but there's a bit of an umami kick. Definitely. Yeah, that's gonna heads up. That's gonna kick harder once we hit it with water. But yeah, I think that's makes sense. The Koji's going to bring out some umami. What'll be interesting is what this does to the score on body. I think because what I heard a lot about this coffee was how it affected the mouth feel. I don't know if I agree with that so far. The couple of times I've cupped it, so it'll be interesting to see what the group thinks. And we have a mouthfeel category down the bottom on Cupwise. Let's boil our kettles. Sound kind of culty, all boiling our kettles together. Are we all boiling? I don't know. Maybe you guys have already started brewing it. I don't know. Now we're gonna have this lovely sound of a kettle in the background. So now we've got our initial descriptors. We can obviously add to those. We could put initial scores in for aroma. Obviously, the aroma has got, well, not obviously, I guess, if you haven't cupped before, the aroma will change quite a bit once you pour water over the top. I'm not going to, I guess I'll be able to tilt the camera down to show you how I'm pouring water. But ideally, when you're pouring the water in, you're going to want to pour quite aggressively to get all the coffee turbid, to get everything moving around. You don't need dry spots. You want a lot of agitation. So pouring aggressive enough to get everything agitated, but not so aggressive that it shoots out everywhere and makes a mess on your nice Achaia scales. But yeah, so the aroma will change once we hit it with water. Some aroma compounds are more water soluble than others. So once they have everything's going to be, not everything, but most things are going to be a lot more volatile once they're wet. But some things are going to be more volatile than others once they're wet. So the aroma will change quite a bit. And I've noticed that particularly on these two. Water helps dry fragrance. A lot of coffees, water doesn't make a huge difference. It changes things subtly, but on these, I've noticed quite a big difference. Unsweetened peanut butter. Is that for the bourbon? Yeah, I can get that. That'd probably be roast again. Anything peanut, you're gonna go roast or Quakers, or in general, if it's kind of a Quakery taste but subtle, then it might just be unripe cherries were picked in there. And I think that perhaps there's a little bit of that going on in this. I might talk about it. We might just discuss later on, and like why we got the flavors we're getting and that kind of thing. But I really hope people remember, put these notes into Cupwise. Don't just throw them into the chat, throw them into Cupwise as well. Are you hitting it with 100-degree water or close to 95? 100 degrees. So, yep, thank you for that question. So I always use water right off the boil for actually every way I do filter brewing. But yeah, definitely when cupping. So let's turn this down, see if I can move this. So for those that haven't cupped before, cool. Scales, there you go, closer or further away. There you go, further away. Man, that delay. All right, so I've got my geisha. So Sorry for those that view that cup a lot. Hopefully this is interesting for those that haven't cut before. So I've got my scales and I'm going to be aiming for 180 grams of water. I'm also going to be setting a timer. Oops, that's the wrong button. So I'm going to be setting a timer for 4 minutes as I start pouring the water. So timer starts. So I pour quite aggressively and then slow down towards the end. So that's the geisha. Get those last few drops in, and now the red bourbon. Ooh, there we go. And then I'm also, while I've got my kettle, going to pour some water in my cup for rinsing and cleaning. And then move my scales off. Tilt this back up. And then we're going to start smelling the. Are you guys just going to be seeing the top of my head? There's bound to be a better way of doing this. I don't have any tables tall enough. I like the way that Scott and Ryan did it for facsimile with their tall tables, but all of our tables at home are crotch height, so I figured that probably wouldn't be preferable. So when I duck my head down, what I'm doing is smelling these coffees and seeing how the dry aroma, now the wet aroma, how the aroma has changed. So thankfully for me on the Koji process, sorry, on the Koji process, on the geisha, the what I think the roast kind of issues have died down a little bit. I'm getting a lot more brown sugar. Still not getting a lot of fruit, but I am getting a little bit of an apricot thing, and it's a really nice apricot too. It's subtle. It's not jumping out of the cup, but it's a fruit note that wasn't there previously. It's very orange. For me, it's apricot, maybe peach. And that sencha is still there, but it's starting to transition to something a little bit more floral. So it's sencha slash, I think, frangipani maybe for me. And so I think with a bit more age on it, then that might help that coffee a little bit. So I'm going to go to the red bourbon. And now, now the umami is coming through a lot more. So dead set. If you think miso, I can smell miso. It's not terrible. It might sound like it's not a good thing, but actually, it's just adding this kind of savory element. I want to say it's not that carbonic maceration, kimchi, really savory Vegemite. At least not for me. Funk. It's a different kind of much cleaner kind of savory element. And the fruits, there's a little bit of a floral thing in there. Maybe rose? It's subtle. It's not jumping out. But there's a subtle kind of rose thing going on there, which is quite nice. It's the first time I've got that from this coffee. That's quite nice. And the fruit hasn't changed a lot, but it does have a bit more of a yellow tinge to it. So, yeah, some like nectarine or something a little bit tropical. And I've cut this previously at the roastery a couple of times since we roasted it just to see how it was aging. I got some really nice pineapple out of it. It had this like tropical, mixed bag going on. Not as much. There's more strawberry for me today. I wonder if giving it more age just brought more strawberry forward. And then we've got our time. We're paying attention to our timer. Got 45 seconds left on that. You can keep going back. I should take my own advice and put those notes into cup-wise. So I'm going to put French penny and then apricot. If it was my own notes, I'd write something like subtle apricot, but I think the word cloud with the group descriptors is going to give us that. If I'm the only person that puts in apricot, it'll be small. And if lots of people put in sencha or something, then it's going to come through bigger. Oh, and I didn't put my negative tasting notes in, my aroma descriptors in last time. So I'm going to be honest. Pencil shavings, that's not going to be from the green, that's going to be from our roast. I apologize for that. Oh, that is my timer. So I'm going to stop that. What were the notes for the bourbon? I'm going to just put in a bit of umami. I'm going to put in miso and nectarine. Oh, and there's a little bit of rose, wasn't there? Cool. All right. So breaking. I'm going to bend this down again. I'm going to keep my head out of the way. Now, ordinarily, when you're breaking, what you would do is get your face really up close into it. And I also kind of cover the cup with my hand to get those aromas. What happens when you break is that kind of crust is trapping a lot of the aromas. When you break, a lot of them come through. So what I'm going to do for the dialing I've got for this grind is I'm just breaking the top. You can break down to the bottom. It's kind of a personal preference. I vacillate between the two. For this grind, I'm breaking the top. So what I'm going to do is go back and forth 1, 2, 3 times to get all that coffee, all that crust to sink. So 1, 2, 3. And again, you guys should be big sniff. Yeah. So that didn't change too much for me. Sometimes the break is a little bit different to the wet aroma. So again, 1, 2, 3. If you're a little bit too aggressive and some coffee goes out the edge, don't worry about it. It's all good. And then what we're going to do is ideally you'd wait for them for a little while for everything to sink. And then we're going to clean this foam off the top. This is the bit that requires a little bit of practice. It's never neat and easy to do it. What you'd probably then have is another cup where you put the foam. But because we're just doing 2 cups, I'm just going to use the same. I've got a lot of water in here, so I'm just going to rinse the spoons. Ordinarily, you'd like rinse the spoons in 1 cup, foam into a different cup. Because usually when you're cupping, you're doing like 10 coffees or more. So hopefully you guys can see this okay. What we're going to do is use the 2 spoons and run around take the equator of the spoon and run it around the edge of the cup and have the spoons overlapping. And so we'd be doing this kind of motion and scooping the foam up. See if I can do that in reverse so you can see it. So you'd start with 1. Ooh, this is hard to do in reverse. And then you'd scoop around. No, I can't do that in reverse. Good thing I'm not a pilot. Okay, I'm just going to show you. 1 spoon in, 2nd spoon behind it, and pull up at the end to get that lovely foam. Rinse those spoons. Then next cup. Now, if it takes you a couple of goes, that's fine. But however many passes you do on 1 cup, make sure you do that on all of them. So I tend to tell people who are just learning how to cup to do 2 passes to get the foam, even if on the first cup you get it in 1 go, because on a later cup, you might need to do 2 passes. The reason for that is because, I don't know if you could see it, and it depends on the shape of the cup and stuff, but that cleaning action actually does cause more agitation. And so with cupping, we want everything to be as equal between the coffees as possible when it comes to the brewing, including agitation. So I'm going to move this out of the way. Got my clean glass and some clean water, and this will just be for rinsing. And we're going to cup normally, either i.e. not COVID safe, unless you're doing this with other people, in which case cup COVID safe. I'll show you that. I can pretend to show you that. Okay, this is, I'll use this cup. So if you're going to be, oh no, we need to go back down again. If you were cupping COVID safe, then what you would do is, we're not ready yet. Don't start yet. The coffee's too hot. I'm just using this time as they cool to run you through. So if you're going to cup in a more COVID safe way, then the way we're going to cup, the way I'm going to cup today, is what you do is take your spoon, take some coffee, put it into a separate cup, and then drink from that. And then rinse your spoon and try the other coffees. That way, the spoon is touching your mouth. The cup is touching your mouth, but the spoon is not. So the thing which is touching the communal coffees is not touching your mouth at all. The way we're going to cup today is to just take the spoons straight to our mouths, which I really prefer. It's funny because it's rare for me to cup the normal way lately because at the roastery there's always a few of us there, and just to be safe, even for just the flu and stuff, it just makes sense to do the COVID safe way of cupping. And then you do a proper cupping again when you're by yourself, and you're like, oh my god, this is so much better. So if right now you're cupping in a COVID safe way with others, sorry, but yeah, do it by yourself at home. It's much more fun to just take the spoon straight to your mouth. I haven't looked at the notes for a little while, so definitely umami smelling with red bourbon. It's also got a slight raspberry smell. Oh, yeah, no, I could go with raspberry. Make sure to throw that in cup-wise. The geisha aroma is grilled and buttered corn on a cob. It's definitely some underdevelopment in that roast. I can get the butter. I mean, I think corn is. I'm still getting more green tea than corn. But now you said butter. I'm getting butter. I wonder if that is just priming, or if there actually is some butteriness going on from the koji processing. Um, Yeah, definitely much nicer smelling than some of the umami I get from intense CMs. Yeah, agreed. I mean, part of that is roast. These are very light roasts. Obviously, in the case, are a little bit too light. And I personally found that CM coffees, which can get really Vegemite, really funky, that tends to get worse. And also the ones that can be a bit sharpy, whiteboard marker, that tends to get worse with roasts. They get more boozy, but that booziness comes through as yeah. Whereas when they're a lighter roast, it might be more like exactly these kind of savory things. Corn might also that might be savoriness from the koji processing as well, but like miso and stuff like that, as opposed to really intense funk. I guess more florals in the wet room with the geisha. Actually, quite liking it. Yay! Raw corn more than buttered. I really hope corn. I really wish corn didn't prime everyone. She said it in a positive way. Okay, the buttered corn was a good thing. All right, that's good. That's good. I'm not putting that on a tasting note for the bag. Although I'm sure Luca would argue I should. It's all right. I didn't get corn, so I feel no moral obligation to put that on the bag. Music comes through with the body on the bourbon. Through with body on the bourbon when wet. Body meaning like in the mouthfeel, like you've already started tasting it. You might be ahead. Might be ahead. People, you guys might be ahead of me. I'm not sure. I'm taking a while. I always take a while for cupping, even when I'm not talking too much, which is most of the time. So a lot of people, in terms of when to start tasting, will set a timer, and that is probably the best way to do it. I always forget. I set like a countdown timer for 4 minutes, not like a starter stopwatch, because then I always miss the 4 minute mark, and I can't. I don't always forget to start another timer. So my little trick is to just feel what I'm doing right now is just feeling the sides of the cups. And when for me, what usually works is when I can hold my hands on there indefinitely, they're cool enough. Now they will change quite a lot as they cool down, but in the interest of you guys not just staring at me and my fake phone, we can probably start as soon as they're cool enough. Unless anyone has any questions or anything like that. Again, for those of you that haven't cut before, if you're here and I've just glossed over something really that you feel might be really important, please let me know. Or for those of you that cup a lot that think I might have glossed over something, Anders, you're really good at pulling me up. Thank you. Maybe let me know. Um, music comes through with the body or much more prevalent than on the nose, yet to sip. As it settled, definitely got more characteristics of geisha, floral peach. Peach! Oh, nice. Yeah, I got a bit more apricot. But yeah, I'm glad the roast didn't absolutely destroy that. Um, oh, this is a cool idea. So doing the Finca Cruz Loma, which is another one of our coffees we have at the moment, alongside as well. That's perfect for a frame of reference, actually, a frame of reference coffee. It smells great, but a bit lackluster on the nose by comparison. Yeah, I mean, I've got some thoughts about the Finca Cruz Loma as well. That's a situation where the landed coffee didn't quite live up to what the PSS pre-shipment samples were for that coffee. We don't reject coffees. I don't like the idea of where that places the risk. So yeah, we bought the coffee anyway. We were selling it at the discount. It's a bit of a shame because we got to taste it at its, the PSS was yeah a lot more. Basically, all the things that are good in that coffee amplified, and that kind of slightly hollow nuttiness that it can sometimes have depending on which beans ended up in your cup. Basically, there was some issues with the evenness of the picking and the quality of the sorting, unfortunately. So I apologize for that. But also like these are just I guess a lot more these coffees had a lot more attention and were a lot more expensive than the Cruz Loma. So you'd kind of hope that they stand out a little bit more, particularly considering how much more expensive retail they were. So we did these. We did these at cost because I wasn't sure how they would be, and I wanted to make sure we were bearing some of that risk as well. That you guys weren't bearing all that risk. But actually, we've got some like coffees in the works for doing these in future. We might always do them at cost to lower the barrier of entry for people having fun with them. I'm not sure. It'll probably depend on basically going to look at what they end up costing per pack wise, and if we need to do them at cost, we will because especially the coffees we've got coming up. where we've planned for doing these things, which we have tasted. There's some crazy stuff, but also crazy expensive. So yeah. um, Getting the cereal note on the nose, but it seems great. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm glad it's good. So that's one of the things with our light roast. Sometimes it's a little bit too light and it is a bit cereal, but then I'm like, you know what? Like every now and then we'll cup one of our coffees, we're like, it tastes like, you know, cereal with blueberries and sultanas. I'm like, you know what? I like having a cereal with blueberries and sultanas. I don't like having burnt toast, which is what a darker roast might have given. So it's like, yeah, some of our stuff can sometimes be cereal, but we know and we're just okay with it because we don't necessarily dislike that. And it's better than what you'd have in exchange for it, which is probably some smoky notes. Um, Oh, cool. So Pondo has a cup of each where the grounds were rested for an hour and one ground fresh as we were speaking, and the rest of the cup of geisha is tasting slightly vegetal. Funnily enough, maybe a bit more than the fresh cup. Huh, that's interesting. I would have thought it'd be the opposite, but there you go. Maybe it'll get more vegetal as it ages, in which case, drink it now. Don't necessarily. Be interesting to see how it ages. Cool. All right. So these are cool enough that I'm going to start tasting. If yours are cool enough too, then you're welcome to do so as well. I'm going to make a little slurpy noise. I'm going to turn it down a little bit for the video because it's never pleasant to hear other people slurp. Again, for those that haven't cut before, the slurping is to aerate the coffee over your palate to try and release a lot of volatiles. Then I'm going to move it around in my mouth, swallow, and then immediately after swallowing, breathe out through my nose. Because your retronasal is going to give you different things from the coffee than what your initial slurp did. And again, this is the non-COVID safe way to cup. Do the COVID safe way if you're with other people. And then also, if you were cupping later on in the day or cupping a lot of coffees that day, you would want to spit. Obviously, that's individual preference on how much caffeine intake. This is, my second and third coffee for the day, so I'm going to swallow. Realistically, you don't really lose anything by spitting as long as you breathe out through your nose afterwards. Do that retronasal thing. So let's begin. The green tea's definitely turned down a little bit on the palate for me. I think the acidity helps with that. And I would agree the fruit that's there is now less apricot and probably more nectarine. It's lighter because there's a bit more of that acidity is bringing a fresher fruit. That's the geisha, by the way. Sorry, I should have said that. I'm starting with the geisha. And I'm just realizing, I think I put all of my notes in the wrong column in Cupwise. Yes, I put all of my geisha notes in the bourbon and all of my bourbon notes in the... See, this is why I said do left, left, and right, right. Yeah, maybe you guys don't need as much help in that regard as I do. I'm okay. I'll change those before I save and close the session and swap them back. I'm definitely preferring the taste. I'm preferring the geisha in the mouth more so than on the nose. I think now it's got some acidity as opposed to just the aromas. Then it's bringing out a little bit more of the fruit that's there. I have to say, I'm still not getting a lot from the Koji thing going on. I'm not sure if the protocols were different or just this coffee was maybe the varietal is. Well, you can't even say that the variety is taking over the processing because it doesn't have a lot of a geisha thing going on. And again, I'm when said that's probably our roast, perhaps. But yeah, I'm still getting that sencha, but now it's with some nectarine. I'm not really I'm not getting butter or corn any longer, thankfully for me. I don't know if you guys are starting on the geisha as well. And unfortunately, the frangipani that was there is actually now coming through a little bit. Well, I'm just going to be completely honest. It's coming through a little bit chlorine, very small amount, which could be you could get that through as like white flowers. Maybe that's why my brain was getting frangipani. It's usually a sign that the coffee maybe had a little tiny bit of a phenol issue, which is caused by mold. Koji is a mold, so maybe depends on temperature and stuff like that. It's like deliberately introducing a mold, it's temperatures and it's just caught the edge of something which for me in my palate in this roast is perhaps a little bit chlorine, just a little bit. And again, if you think white flowers, if you think jasmine, which is actually, a very common note in geisha, if you think jasmine, then maybe that's what your brain will get instead. I'm very sensitive to phenol and that chlorine thing. So, and I want to say it's not unpleasant. It's not ruining the cup for me in any way. I'm just noticing. I'm just train of thought, just stream of thoughts. But yeah, I would probably go. It's pretty nice. Not the nicest I've had, but pretty nice. Washed geisha from Colombia at altitude, which things like 1,500 meters or something. So yeah, that was nice, but so far this is just the first pass. But the Koji's not jumping out as of yet. So I'm going to move on to the red bourbon. Yeah, okay, so the Koji's definitely more apparent. Definitely more apparent in the red bourbon. Mm. I would agree there's probably more raspberry than strawberry. Now it's wet. It's still got some nice red fruits. Like the coffee tastes red. I love going with colors a lot of the time, like especially when it's hard to get tasting notes. Like that coffee is really purple or blue or red or green or orange. You love when coffees are orange because it's kind of not that common. But that's the coffee is very red. So there's some strawberries, raspberries. Um, I'm not getting the tropical thing I've got with less age in it. With less age in it, it had this I want to say like papaya and maybe pineapple thing. Which I'm not getting at least today, and at least on this first pass. And then the Koji, I think, it's definitely changed the sweetness. The sweetness is a lot more syrup. Well, okay, I can't say change because I haven't tasted this coffee without the Koji processing, but comparatively to the geisha, which I think has maybe less influence from the Koji, and comparatively to other naturally processed Colombian coffees from similar altitude, red bourbon, um, it has a more syrupy sweetness than I would expect for this roast level. Usually at our roast levels, the sweetness always comes through as a very juicy fruit kind of sweetness. Whereas this, even at that roast level, borderline too light, it's and with that acidity, it's still coming through as this quite syrupy sweetness, which maybe is that I did hear a lot about how the Koji might be affecting the mouthfeel. So maybe that's how it's coming through for me. And then the Koji. I again don't know if it's Koji, but I assume the Koji processing, the umami quality, yeah, it's actually reminding me a little bit of a white miso, not like a heavy red one, but like a nice white miso, which for me sometimes does get those kind of tropical fruit aromas. So maybe when I was getting those in earlier cuppings, it was from the Koji processing. It was from the miso. White misos for me can get kind of these pineapple-y tropical things. So yeah, that's the first pass. What else is going on in there? There's something I'm not getting. It's there. I think it's from the Koji, but I'm going to move on it from now. I'm going to go through the comments while I reset. Taking a break is important for two reasons. One, it cools the coffees down more; they'll change. There's also, regardless of the temperature changing, more chemical changes within the coffees with time. Also, reset your palate, which is a really important thing. When the biggest thing for your palate is going to be time and maybe some water, but time is going to be the biggest one. So I'm just going through some of the comments while I was busy tasting. Get the green tea vegetables almost more so than in the smell. Oh, okay, there you go. I lucked out. Maybe more like a hojicha charcoal roast green. Hopefully, it's not smoky. But I do know what you mean with the hojicha. I've actually got hojicha in it a couple of times previously, and I think for me, it's less about because when I've had hojicha, I haven't had like charcoal, like heavily smoked hojicha. Maybe I've had more untraditional ones, which were just toasted. They had this like toasted quality and this grainy quality. So it's got this like, and again, there's going to be toasted grains, a little bit underdeveloped, along with green tea. But yeah, like hojicha just sums it up perfectly. Fortunately, I quite like hojicha. And again, this goes back to we always run the risk with our roasts being as light as they are because, when a roast is a little bit too light, we still quite like those flavors. Whereas if it's smoky, no, just no. Not willing to run that risk. Definitely tastes red, maybe a touch unripe red fruit. Yeah, the acidity for me lowered the ripeness of the fruit based compared to the dry aroma. Yeah, as soon as my brain got that acidity, then the fruits became, but they also became nicer because it became like juicier. Less astringency with the geisha. Yeah, so the astringency, I with this grind, I'm not. I have had it in previous cuppings of it. I'm not getting astringency in the geisha, but I am getting a bit of a hollowness. And I have had astringency in it previously. Thank you again, Luca, for the tip of grinding coarser and updosing. That has helped a lot for these coffees. Um, but yeah, when we cupped in our normal setting, usually when we're cupping, we'd go quite fine and try and push the extraction and a lower dose. And yeah, that came through. It had some astringency. For me, it's just like a bit of a hollowness, a bit of lack of sweetness. I don't want to be one of those roasters that points the finger of blame at other people in the supply chain. Definitely, that could be helped with if we'd had more goes roasting it. Then we could have brought out a little bit better from the coffee. However, if I'm going to be completely honest, and I want to do these things with complete honesty, and I hope that doesn't upset anyone, but the green coffee was very uneven. And so there was a big discrepancy in the coffees when they were roasting. So some of the coffee was roasting faster than other beans, within the same batch. Basically, what that means is to get the ideal roast level, it narrows what ideal is going to be and widens the spectrum you're going to get in each cup. In that some of the beans are going to be a little bit roasted too quickly and some of the beans will be roasted too slowly, too quickly being a bit of tipping, too slowly potentially being a little bit flat and uninteresting. And also in terms of roast level, if you get, wherever you shoot for, some of it's going to be a little bit too roasted and some of it's going to be a little bit underdeveloped, a little bit less roasted, but also a lot of that discrepancy in the bean to bean variation in the green coffee. It seemed to be, I wasn't there, I don't know, but just based on my experience as a roaster, it seemed to be like the picking was maybe what was introducing that inconsistency, and so the coffees weren't all picked at exactly the same ripeness. And so if there were, not saying there was, but if there was some coffee in there which was a little bit underripe when picked, underripe cherries can introduce, in worst case scenarios, astringency into a cup, regardless of everything else. And in better cases, just a bit of a lack of sweetness, a hollowness, because those beans which don't have as much sweetness would have been replaced theoretically with beans which were more sweet because the coffee was picked more ripe. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on that too much. But yeah, so that doesn't really surprise me. When I looked at the green, I kind of, as it was roasting, I was thinking, there's some underripes in here. It's perhaps going to be a little bit hollow and run the risk of being astringent. But it is what it is. So other notes, red bourbon, far more balanced, sweet, syrupy. Yeah, I would agree with that. The red bourbon so far is my preference. More balanced, sweet, and syrupy. Also more umami. As it's cooling down, I'm getting that rose characteristic coming through again, and the umami's toning down a little bit, which is for me. I'm liking that. It's getting more juicy, and it's a bit sweeter. Yeah, funk I think manifests in that umami kick that again isn't like a CM umami, but definitely a sort of soybean paste umami. Yeah, maybe miso. Yeah, that's that. Which I prefer over the usual CM funk. As Pondo's comment on the red bourbon. Yeah, it's like because I like miso, so I did think I wasn't anticipating that adding koji would literally introduce a miso type flavor to coffee because coffee's so different to soybeans. But yeah, and maybe it's priming. Maybe we're tasting miso because we know koji was added. Maybe if we didn't know that and we were probably blind, we wouldn't be getting that. Priming is very powerful. Um, Spot on with the Hojicha description. Not smoky like a lap song. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Not smoky. If any of our light roasts, I mean, we have darker roasts, our blend, but if any of our light roasts are ever smoky to you, please let me know because it means we've missed it in our QC and we need to change that profile. We never want smoke in our light roast. I'm not saying that the dark roasts don't have their place. I never want to dictate how people should enjoy coffee, and we have quite a dark roast in our dark roast, but that's just not what we want in our single origins. That's only for our blend. Um, And if people like that, then absolutely great. It's just not how we want to represent our single origins, our light roasts. Slight oolong tea from the as it cools down, I'm getting a slight oolong tea from the geisha. Definitely very slight and tea-like. I mean, tea-like is not bad. Yeah, I can see oolong. I think that's made with the brown sugar. I get brown sugar from a lot of oolongs. So that's how it's coming through. The fruit's coming through nicely as well. I am still getting a little bit of that chlorine though, and kind of not the same sweetness that's in the red bourbon. I forgot to use the third wave sachet. Luckily, Brisbane Tap is pretty great. Yeah. Unluckily, Adelaide Tap is not. I think my tap water at home is like 350 ppm out of the tap. I actually didn't use the third wave water either because I forgot to buy distilled water. So I instead used my peak jug. But I've got my peak jug dialed in to get me actually very close to third wave water espresso at half strength in terms of general hardness and carbonate hardness. And I've cupped coffees side by side blind between the two, peak with my tap water and not being able to pick the difference. So yeah, I forgot my distilled water. I wonder if did anyone else actually use the third wave? The idea there was if we're all using the same water, then we're all going to have similar experiences because water can have a huge impact. But what I just said right then, going back, if anyone's got a peak water jug, the peak, it depends on what you're getting out of your tap water. So I'm lucky enough that my tap water through the peak is giving me a similar general hardness and carbonate hardness ratio as the third wave water espresso version, which is what we like to cup with. And then I've dialed it in to be about the same as half strength third wave water espresso version. But it depends on what you're getting out of your tap. That's just a coincidence that my tap water is giving me a similar ratio. Um, Red bourbon as it cools down is quite nice, rounding out a lot more and becoming quite juicy. Yeah, nice. Mm. The savory thing for me, I'd agree, it's becoming more juicy. And the savory thing for me, it's becoming less umami and more. I don't know how to describe it other than like spicy. It's not spicy, but if you think about when you've had like a pie or something like that, or a Danish, and it's got some spices on it, like star anise or something like that. I'm not saying this doesn't really have a licorice flavor at all, but you add some spices to fruit, stewed fruit, and then it kind of brings out a more savory quality in them. Particularly if you caramelize the sugars, that's kind of what I'm getting out of it. The umami, I quite like what it's adding, to be honest. Like at first, I was like, when we bought these to do this because we thought it'd be really fun and interesting for everyone. Hopefully, it is. um, but it's not. It didn't jump out. Now I know it jumped out for Tim because Tim. I mean, I've got some of Tim's homemade kimchi in our fridge right now. Thank you, Tim. But Tim's one of the other roasters. If you see notes from Tim on your order, that's that Tim. He loves fermentation and stuff, and I mean I do too, but not as into it as Tim is. And yeah, I think he was really excited about again just the interest of it using Koji on coffee. But in general, personally, I don't like coffees to have savory elements, but I think it's actually adding a nice complexity. It's not dominating. Again, it's definitely not like the CM Vegemite thing that's doing the rounds lately, a few years now. Yeah, it's just adding this extra element of savory, which is quite nice with the fruit. Makes it more stewed, more baked, which I'm quite liking. Melbourne Tap. No, it's coming too far with different water. Yeah, yeah. I mean, especially on the obviously water won't affect your dry aroma or really your wet aroma. It's only going to affect the taste. But the reason water can have such a big impact as soon as you are tasting is because, as far as I'm aware, any biologist, please correct me if I'm wrong, but your brain will get chemicals as aroma compounds, and you'll smell those, and your brain will go, "I've had this before. This reminds me of strawberries. So maybe I'm eating a strawberry." Then, if you taste something and your brain goes, "Strawberries are sweet and sour," and instead you get no sweetness and it's bitter, your brain will go, "Oh, well, that can't be a strawberry I'm smelling," and kind of tune out the taste. So yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I say when someone's brewing a coffee and it doesn't taste the way it smells, there's probably an issue with your extraction. If someone says the coffee smelled really good but just tasted like coffee, or was bland, it's probably over extracted. Because what's happened is you've extracted enough bitter compounds to kind of wash out the acidity there. And if the coffee smells fruity but doesn't taste fruity, it's probably lacking acidity. And going back to water, it could be from over extracting, or it could be from having too much buffer in your water, as a for instance. General hardness is mostly going to just change how you perceive acidity and how much and what you're extracting. But buffer is going to have a huge impact on if the dry aroma translates to the taste. Um, I'm having a couple of really intense Siam coffees I'm struggling to get through. It's giving me a slight reaction to the red bourbon. PTSD. All right, I'm going to go back to the geisha. Coffee's cooled down quite a bit now as we've been talking, or as I've been talking at you, and you've been commenting. Is there a way to do this with like people who can do voices? Because there's not that many of us here right now, so I feel like we could have done this with like, like talking. Feels a bit weird, but anyway. Mm. I'm definitely preferring the geisha as it cools down. I've lost a lot of the savory quality. I still wish there was a bit more sweetness. Um, Thankfully, it's not astringent for me with this grind, but I'm getting more of the fruit and more of the florals. There are some florals there. It's definitely not like, if you've not had a geisha before, I don't consider this a typical example of the variety. I don't think it's showing, whether that's through the Koji processing or the picking or my roasting, I don't think it's showing excellent typicity for the variety. Still quite enjoyable to drink. But if you've not had a geisha, I wouldn't use this as a touch point for geisha. Yeah, I think jasmine. I get jasmine. I think chlorine. I get chlorine. But thinking jasmine, and I'm getting a little bit. There's definitely some white flowers there and some nectarines. The fruit that's there is definitely getting more white and yellow and less orange as it cools down. But I'm enjoying it more. Um, Google Hangouts is what TRR does. Do you know if we'd be able to connect that to Cupwise? Hmm. Yeah, for me, the bourbon's not changing too much as it cools down. The sweetness is getting a little bit more syrupy. Um, and yeah, like I said, the savory is going to the background a little bit more and just becoming this kind of like caramelized fruit that you've baked in the oven. But yeah, still, yeah, quite nice, juicy, fruity. Um, Yeah, so I remember your last geisha being far more floral and less vegetal, bergamot and jasmine. Yeah, so bergamot and jasmine are the flavors you're kind of looking for in a. That was probably the Las Alistas from Bolivia, I'm guessing. Um, yeah, I think there's two things there. One, we had actually we only had two goes roasting that as well, but I knew that coffee better because we've bought the Las Alistas for quite a few years now, and so I was a little bit more prepared for how that coffee was going to behave in the roaster. So, but also like I just think that Las Listas, I've only just tried this one, so I don't, I'm only commenting on this lot that we've had. But the Las Listas from Bolivia has more typicity of geisha variety than what I'm getting from at least this particular lot from El Vergel. But maybe the other ones, maybe it's my roasting, have a lot more typicity. But yeah, that Las Listas, that was actually probably the best year for the Las Listas, I think. The one we roasted most recently, that just went out to subscribers. So if you if you want to get in on some coffees, that because some coffees we only do out to, we don't have that much. They just go out to subscribers, and we don't actually put them on the web store. So if you don't want to miss out, might be time to subscribe. Um, Yeah, I think if I had to pick one to just drink, it would definitely be the Koji process, because it's the biggest word on the bag. The red bourbon. As it's cooling down, I'm getting a little bit of bitterness, so I think maybe that one's extraction was a little bit too high still. So I wonder if with a lower extraction, I would have got a little bit less fruit. Oh, sorry, a little bit more fruit and a little bit less savory than I did. The amount of savory I got wasn't unpleasant for me personally. Um, and I just realized I've put like nothing into Cupwise. See, this is the problem with the two windows. Hopefully, you guys have been a lot more prudent than I have about putting your notes into Cupwise. But yeah, so the Cupwise is going to, I think I can just leave the Cupwise open, not end the session, just leave it open. And it'll be embedded on, so obviously you've got the link, but it'll also be embedded on our website on the Koji Pack page. And then what I'll probably do is, even though now the Koji Pack is sold out, I'll leave that up for a while because I think, and you can always let me know if this doesn't work for whatever reason, but I think what people will be able to do is add their notes into Cupwise at any point. Doesn't have to be today, right now. So they can see what the average score was from us doing the live tasting now, but it will stay open. And at any point, you can go in. So if you're watching this video after the fact, you're one of the people that didn't join us live today, then still open up Cupwise and still put your notes in, or go onto our website and go to the Koji Pack page and go down to the very bottom, and we've embedded the Cupwise. You can put your notes in there, see the tasting notes from other people, what scores they gave it. And I think I'll probably just leave that up. So I don't know if some of you, even people that are here, might not have had the coffee, received the copy yet. So when you do cup it, then yeah, you can throw your notes in there, and I'll probably check back in a couple of weeks and see, what people's notes are. It'll be interesting. But yeah, so because for that reason, there's no rush to get all your notes in now, and I'm not going to sit here and make you guys watch me do this for 10 minutes while I put my notes in. So I'm probably just going to put my notes in after we finish the video, and you guys are more than welcome to do the same. But yeah, do we have anything else to talk about? Again, I've not done one of these before. How do you wrap this up? Um, if there's, I actually think that the chat will stay open in the Cupwise link as well. So I think as long as I keep that session open, the chat will stay open as well. So people can always share other thoughts in there. Obviously, this chat will close when I finish streaming. Does anyone know? Can anyone tell me, like, how do I, one, end the stream, and two, when I do, do I have to click something so that it saves, or will it automatically save to our videos? You have to help me here. I'm very technically not savvy with this stuff. I assume when I hit end stream, something will come up and let me save it, so people can view this at a later date. I think maybe it's because of the CM coffees I have right now, but the geisha far more extraction is definitely more my speed. It's nice break from umami. I can see that. Appreciate the transparency and insight. No, you're more than welcome. Thank you to everyone that's joined in. And if you're watching this video after the fact, hopefully it's been useful for you. Hopefully it's made you want to join into the next one. Oh, so feedback, completely welcome. Obviously feedback on the roast, feedback on the experience, the packaging, the shipping, the timing of the video. Obviously I know the video, next time we'll have the video in Cupwise. This is a bit annoying. I apologize for that. I'll make sure to work that out before the next one. Yeah, any feedback on the experience at all, so we can improve it next time. Basically, this is going to be something that we want to do regularly, and hopefully it was fun enough that you want to do it with us again. And yeah, we can work it out together to make this the most fun experience possible. Like I said, I'm open to, if this is the kind of thing that someone else is much better at, please. I'm willing to learn. If you throw your computer into the spit bucket, that should do it. Thankfully, I'm not spitting, so I can't afford a new laptop. But thank you, Luca. That's a great idea. But yeah, so if anyone's watching this video after the fact, then you can still throw your scores into Cupwise. We'd love the group. I'm sure I would love to see your opinions as well. And yeah, please throw in feedback on how this went and how we can improve it next time. Timing's a big one as well. Like I was kind of like 10 a.m. on a Sunday, or 10 a.m. Adelaide time on a Sunday. Might be a pretty good time for people, but maybe not. So yeah, please let me know. Could use a Google Doc to share tasting notes collaboratively. The audio is definitely better here than the tasting vids with roasters running in the background. You should hear how loud the loring is. It's insane. I have to go outside to take calls and stuff with the loring. It's so loud. Yeah, I'm glad the audio is okay, because literally this is my MacBook with my webcam and the inbuilt microphone, whatever that is. I'm glad it worked okay. And hopefully this was fun. But yeah, if no one else has any thoughts to throw in now, then thank you everyone for joining and for communicating with me. Thank you. So I didn't feel too much like a weirdo just sitting here talking at my laptop. This is not the same as cupping in person, but hopefully it gets us part of the way there. If you're in Adelaide, then we do public cuppings, and that's obviously a lot more fun when we're just with each other. But this is yeah, it's hopefully some part of the way there, coming together and getting other people's thoughts and feedback. And again, please be honest with your feedback, especially I'm going to say especially on the roast because that's how we improve and get better and make coffee tastier for you guys. And yeah, hopefully it was fun, and I'm going to see if I can work out how to turn off the live stream. I think I'm in the wrong window. Okay, that's the right window. Okay, I'm in the YouTube window now, not the other window. All right, thanks everyone. And yeah, I'll probably email and social media for when we're going to do the next one of these. I've already planned out what the coffee is going to be. We're going to do three coffees, three thermal shot coffees from Brazil, which are kind of bonkers and really interesting and fun. And we might do that semi soon, actually. I'm about to go on leave, so I want to probably get that in before I do. But yeah, so thanks for joining and hope to see you at another one of these. Thanks everyone. Bye.